Welcome back to another reading and correcting with me, Kindar, the Tiger Writes, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. These are where I read a chapter from one of my stories and correct it as I go. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch and YouTube. And if you want to support me, that is on my Patreon. Today we are doing chapter 22 of The Captain's Heart. And of course, forgot that. Do you know what this is about? Gralgiran asked Queric as they walked along the station's claustrophobic corridor. He'd contacted the ambassador as soon as the commander had demanded to see him. The tone had been cordial, but a demand nonetheless. You would be better placed to know why he might be put off at the moment. Queric answered. Why would I? I am simply a merchant captain. They were speaking Station Kelsirian, as it was the only dialect they had in common. Every Kelsirian who left the gravity well had to learn it. Gralgiran still wouldn't put more on the ambassador than he was already aware of or suspected. Actually, there's no still. Gralgiran wouldn't put more on the ambassador than he was already aware of or suspected. He had... I don't like that they're suspected here and then suspicion here. He had a guess as to what this was about. No matter how confident Gralgiran was, he hadn't tripped anything with his scans. There was little else it could be. Will this endanger your hunt? No. Whatever the commander might demand, leaving is not an option. Jeremy can confirm the state of our generator. He already has. The commander accosted him a few days ago. The sense of the altercation I got off Jeremy was a pleasant interrogation, but one nonetheless. Then, unless he is willing to contact the Federation and have another ship here that doesn't answer to him. This is a comma. Yep. He won't have a choice with us remaining. They reached the door, and before the wait stretched the point Gralgiran suspected it was a show of power, it opened. He smelled someone else had been in the room recently, not Jeremy, he was pleased to note. The smell was too fresh, so the commander had probably just sent them away. Care to explain yourself? The commander demanded. Gralgiran looked at Queric, canting his ear questioningly. As far as he knew, the Earther didn't have much in the way of information on Kelsirian body language, but then again, he wasn't supposed to have access to as much information on Earthers as he did. Will you require me to translate for you? The ambassador asked, or can this be better served speaking for their allies? The commander said something Gralgiran didn't understand, an Earther dialect, but the tone made the displeasure evident. Someone from your ship has hacked their way into one of our databases and stole terabytes of data. What? Queric glared at Gralgiran, who was trying to understand what the commander could be talking about. Other than the one ballad Girani had copied to study, she hadn't accessed anything. Gralgiran had Tykernaries. Tykernaries? Wow, yeah. Tykernaries, another of the hacker hunter, go over what she'd done, and they confirmed it. He didn't want to think she'd been stupid enough to find a way to continue on the hunt he had taken her off. She had to know this wouldn't lead to him bringing her back on. What was copied? He asked, readying himself to track a valid reason. He hated being in these situations without preparation. Movies, ballads, Kurik explained, his tone neutral, even if he still glared. Then he frowned and turned to the commander. That's all? You say that like hacking into a foreign power isn't the problem here. Gralgiran felt the commander's eyes on him, but he was still processing the revelation, trying to understand and come up with an explanation. The two occurred nearly at the same time, and there was nothing fake about his groan. You have my complete apology, he said. So, you're not going to deny you're spying on us? Really, Commander? Kurik asked. How do you go from making copies of your movies to the captain's spying? And why would he? We are allied. Kelsir is who is shepherding you within the Federation. Or is your implication that those movies are not what is publicly available to anyone on the station? It is the entire public movie database, the commander said in a tone that made it sound like that was an affront to his gods. Then it is something anyone can request, Kurik said, and Gralgiran was amazed at the casualness of the tone. If they had access to our systems, the commander replied, which I didn't grant. If I may offer an explanation, Gralgiran said, keeping Kurik from speaking. That's kind of why you're here. Boredom, he said, and had no doubt it was what had motivated the action. Excuse me? Are you saying your people will just hack into foreign powers when they have nothing better to do? No, but they are usually allowed the liberty of leaving the ship and exploring what the station has to offer. I haven't restricted you to your ship, but you had us dock in an empty section with no lift working, unless you have called one of us to answer you. Answer to you. And merchant make a habit of employing hackers? The commander asked in a tone that made it clear he wasn't pleased with the explanation. Gralgiran suspected it would be less pleased when Kurik explained the rules he was breaking by not giving his crew access to the public system. A hacker is nothing more than a system expert, and every ship needs many of them. I don't think that it's much of a stretch to consider that with nothing better to do, one of them might claw at your security to see what happens, and if they are skilled enough to dig through, then they might go exploring and return with spoils. An entire database worth of movies. Now Gralgiran was certain the tone was due to the affront that someone had made it through their security and not the theft of those movies. If it will assuage you, I will ensure the data is erased as soon as I have found the perpetrator. It won't, the commander stated, and yet it will have to suffice. Kurik said again amazing Gralgiran with how casual he still was. While you aren't part of the Federation, so not technically bound to the rules of hospitality that cover us, there is an expectation that you would at least welcome Federation visitors instead of relegating them to a forgotten section of your station. I will leave it to the captain to decide if he wishes to lodge a complaint, but know that if he does so, I will support it. I understand Earth is used to doing things its way, but it is no longer alone. It will have to adapt. Fine, you can go. Gralgiran followed Kurik out. Can I ask a favor? The ambassador said, speaking Station Kelsirian again. And don't lodge a complaint? Will you explain why? Your reasoning was sound, and I could benefit from having access to their public system, if only to help alleviate the boredom. The hunt I'm on won't benefit from tension between us. I had to bring up this is transgression, since it would have been suspicious not to, but I'd prefer to avoid an escalation. Will the commander believe it as a gesture of penance on my part? I'm unsure. His anger at the situation is masking many of his thoughts. Then I'll say it's so, and we will see what happens. Then they were silent until they reached the lift. Hunter Alpha. If this breach was part of your hunt, I ask that you stop. I ask that you stop the. If this was. If this breach was part of your hunt, I ask that you stop. Was to your hunt, I asked that you stop this part of it. You could order me, Quarrick smiled. Would you really take an ambassador's order over that of the gods? This hunt is for the Federation. The male chuckled. I don't think we'd be in this situation if you were certain of that. Hunt with care, Alpha. Take care with your own hunt, Quarrick. Gralgiran smiled at the male's surprise and entered the lift. Gralgiran stood next to the hacker, watching him work, but not understanding the code that slid along the screen. Hunter, he greeted the male when he paused. Alpha, tell me what you have accomplished. Do not leave anything out. The male went on alert. I have been scanning the Earther code. The Earther code... Okay, this is going to be a period. Jirani had begun clawing at their video compression, and I'm familiarizing myself with that. Have you been within their system? No, Alpha. Until I can advance Jirani's work, there's no point. Gralgiran studied the hunter. The angle of his ears, the clamminess of his nose pad, the dilation of his irises, and nodded, satisfied. None of them were entirely reliable sign of honesty, and Zorfiel could have anyone believe whatever she wanted if they went only by those, but for this, them and the scent were enough. He walked away, and the other hunters exchanged looks. Batrix waited for him by the door. Gralgiran unlocked it, and they entered, the male seating himself at the console. Everything, Gralgiran instructed, about Jirani. As a hunter ship, the Bane had something other ships didn't, something the Federation considered illegal. Everything was monitored, without exception. Without exception. It went back to before they made it into space. As soon as they discovered ways to record, if some ballads were to be believed. The gods knew all, so those who hunted for them shouldn't fear having their actions recorded. Or so the Kelsirian leadership always claimed. Gralgiran had never minded the system, and at times it was useful. What he and Batrix were doing would also be recorded, and this use would be sent to Kelsir for review as soon as they finished. He was certain one of the admirals would bring it up next time they tried to take the ship from him. But he needed to know. The wall before them became a multitude of screens, each with one thing in common: Jirani. Remove anything sexual unless a computer is involved. A handful of screens disappeared, and a quick scan showed nothing his superior could qualify as him spying on his crew for his own pleasure. Conveniently forgetting he couldn't operate the system. He could only unlock the door. One of his beta had to operate the system. To operate it. Traditionally, the one in charge of the hunter being investigated. Remove anything where Jirani is with others unless computers are involved. Nearly all the screens disappeared. Those that remained showed her at a terminal. A few in leisure alleys. He recognized the layout of one of the learning center. The others would be her quarters, he expected. Bring up what she was working on. Screen appeared next to the videos. Text, one a video with someone else, another a ballad. He clawed those and flicked them away. He read the text and flicked that away once he had enough to understand what the text was. Anything with code, he flicked to Batrix. When he was done, the male had 3 screens he was studying. This is revision work. Gralgiran codes theorems, 7th session, I think. More advanced than I took. This is a program she's writing, an algorithm. From what I can make out, as I flicked to the other screen, his body language changed, ear up in surprise and then a slump of disappointment. He looked at the screen he'd been studying and sighed. If I have to guess, it's a decompiling algorithm designed to work with Earther code. That's the video code from the Earther ballads. Where did she get that code? The clicking of claws and more screen, faster than Gralgiran could follow. They appeared and vanished. Then only one screen was left. It was pulled from the Earther station while she was on duty. He swiped left and right, following the code. The video is still within our system. 7 copies. One of which is in her quarter. The one she used for her program? Yes. Did she hack the station since being taken off the hunt? No, Alpha. Are you certain? Yes, Alpha. Gralgiran leaned against the console, relieved and annoyed. He hadn't wanted her to be the responsible party, but it would have made this simpler. That she was still working on with pieces of the hunt he'd have to address, but this needed to come first. Someone hacked the station, he told his beta. They copied terabytes of Earther ballads, and as you can imagine, it didn't go unnoticed. Claws were clicking again, and Gralgiran watched Batrix type. Okay, terabytes is going to be a bump in the system, no matter what it contains. So, if I pull all those bumps out, filter those that have a valid reason to exit, I'm left with... Huh? Gralgiran smiled. Maybe it wouldn't be so complicated after all. It vanishes in the bowels, his beta said, perplexed. Gralgiran stormed out. Just Billiam wanted his sanity. That was the only explanation. In exchange for his heart, she was demanding his sanity. Genial! He roared as he stepped within the quartermaster's domain. Why, Captain! The male replied, leaning against the counter, smiling. What an unexpected and much welcome surprise. Do you have any idea what you've done? The Tahalan grinned. Well, I can give you a list, alphabetical or in order of what I enjoyed the most. You have no authority to steal from the station. Growl, growl, growl. You don't presume to be so familiar with me, quartermaster. You know, there's a standing offer. Gralgiran grabbed the male by the neck and didn't pierce his skin purely by willpower. Okay, I yield. Who told you? About the treasure trove of ballads? Selagrim hair for Igral. Gralgiran didn't know the name, which meant they were civilian, and entirely justified his dislike of involving them in hunts, even when what they do seemed so simple. What he could do about them was limited, and what he could do about them was limited. They hadn't actually revealed hunt-related information, but who did you get to hack the station? The jovialness left Xenial. I'm not telling you. Don't test me, quartermaster. I'm not in the mood for your games. I'll tell you it isn't one of your hunters, so you don't have to worry about me sullying one of them. Well, in that way at least. But I'm not telling you who did this for me. Are you in such a hurry to end up in the brig again? The male's face lit up. Is Sasha Hell on duty? With a snarl, Gralgiran pulled the male over the counter and dragged him towards the exit. Mind things while I'm gone, Xenial called. If there's anything you can't handle on your own, you know where to find me. No visitors. This time Xenial wasn't getting any visitors, and he'd have the rotation redone to ensure there couldn't be someone he already knew on duty. That would test the male to push. That would test? Teach the male to push him like that. He stifled a groan. Tom was going to laugh at him so hard when he told them. And that concludes chapter 22 of The Captain's Heart. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next chapter is going to be up, subscribe and hit the bell. If you want to read this, it's posted on Ream Story. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch and YouTube. Links are in the notes. And with that, I shall wish you a good day.